Thank you, Mr. Macklem and Ms. Rogers, for coming here. For whatever criticisms you may face, a failure to communicate, I don't think can honestly be one of them. So thank you for being here. My questions are going to focus around the carbon tax and then hopefully, if I have time, productivity. We had an exchange back in spring of 2022. We've known each other for a while now, Mr. Macklem, but Governor Macklem. So I asked you about the financial or the inflationary impact of the carbon tax. And I have seen it misquoted by both politicians and reporters. So I want to clear up something like that, clear this up. What you said, or what you wrote, actually, I've got it here, is that, and I'll just read it here for ease of everyone. According to bank calculations, if the charge were to be removed from three main fuel components of the consumer price index, gasoline, natural gas, and fuel oil, it would reduce the inflation rate by 0.4 percentage. What's been quoted throughout by politicians and journalists as well is actually the increase that you said, which would be 0.1 or 0.1, 0.5, I've seen as well. And so we've already had one increase. So if I can add 0.4 to the 0.1 or 0.1, 0.5, I've also seen quoted, that would be 5 or 50 or 55 basis points. Is that, am I understanding you correctly in that?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'll give you the updated numbers.
Yeah.
So there's really two separate questions. So one question is, because the carbon tax is going up, right, over time. Mm-hmm. So one question is, how much are the increases in the carbon tax adding to inflation each year? And that number is about 0.15 percentage points of inflation.
Got it.
And that's the direct impact on those three components.
Perfect, thank you.
The second question you asked me was, what would be the effect if the carbon tax, what would be the effect on inflation if the carbon tax was eliminated? And that would create a one-time drop in inflation of 0.6 percentage points.
Okay.
So that would last 1 year. And since you can only eliminate it once, the next year it would have no effect on inflation.
For sure. And hopefully next year inflation won't be as a big a concern as it is this year. But just to reiterate what you said there, so it would be 60 basis points or 0.6%, which currently the inflation rate is at 3.8%. So that equates to more than 10, I think almost 15%, if I can do the math quickly, in a drop in inflation. So, is that would be a sizable drop in inflation. It would make your job, to quote you, it would be helpful, if I can. Would that be correct?
It's only going to affect inflation for 1 year.
Yeah, but as you said, Mr. Macklem, hopefully, and as you forecasted, inflation probably, according to your predictions, won't be as big an issue as it will for a year right now. So if we can get a year's relief out of that, that's Canadians who will be able to keep their houses, that's Canadians who will be able to enter the mortgage bracket, that's Canadians who will be able to feed themselves because of a 10% reduction in inflation. Isn't that so, Mr. Macklem?
It'll be down 0.6.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. The other issue I want to talk to you a little bit about is the carbon tax and the impact it has actually with respect to productivity and productivity in general. So, of course, inflation occurs as you've mentioned, as basic first-year economic textbooks say, when demand and supply get out of equilibrium. The conversation has focused almost completely around the demand side. And I realize that's more, demand is what you're there to control to reduce inflation. But supply also plays a big role as well. And with Canada, as you said in your report, productivity having flatlined over the last 8 years, and that's in contrast to U.S., where you've actually seen pretty strong growth with respect to productivity. Are you concerned, as much as you can say, I realize it might be limited, about Canada's productivity issues and the impact that could have on supply?
We are concerned about Canada's productivity issues. If you look, and this is not an issue of the last quarter or the last year, even the last few years. It's a 20-year issue. Canada's productivity growth has underperformed for about the last 20 years. If you look at how Canada has grown, this country has actually done a very good job of growing by adding workers. We have very high rates of labor force participation, much higher female labor participation in Canada than the United States. We have a good immigration system where companies are good at hiring workers, integrating them into the workforce, and that has really been the key to our growth. What has been disappointing is that we've been much less successful in growing output per worker or productivity. And why that really matters is that higher productivity pays for higher wages. It's the source of sustained increases in our standard of living. So it is a concern to us, but we don't really have any levers that affect productivity growth. We influence demand.
But just continuing on with respect to the inflationary impact of the carbon tax, any type of, it's my belief, Mr. Macklem, Governor Macklem, that any type of encumbrance that we put on productivity, we must try to avoid. And that carbon tax adds another encumbrance in the fact that businesses specifically don't get any rebates, unlike individuals, which is going to make us less and less productive. So it is a terrible tax because of what it does to our most vulnerable in our communities, but it's also a terrible tax from an economic perspective in that it is driving down our productivity when we can least afford our productivity to be driven down.
We've only analyzed the effects of the carbon tax, the direct effects